It's preparing. And we are redirecting to YouTube. Awesome, and we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in with us this evening. We're so excited to dive into a conversation around faith in business. And I'm joined by three incredible panelists who really carry a wealth of knowledge in the area of business and entrepreneurship. And so we're really excited to hear from them this evening. The way this evening will work is we'd really love to interact with you live if you are joining us and viewing this. And so why don't you drop a comment, drop a wave, drop your name, let us know that you are with us. Some of our team are really excited to just meet you and interact with you over there. And the aim of this evening is to get some live engagement. So if you have any questions while any of the panelists are sharing anything, please pop that in the chat and we'd love to answer that during our conversation today. But we're going to dive straight in. I'm going to introduce our panelists and then I'm going to hand over to them with some questions. With us tonight, we have Unathi Mbonambi. I'm really excited to have you. Please say hi, Unathi.
Hi.
So Unathi started out doing an undergrad in economics and econometrics. Econometrics, wow. And she has a BCom in honors in strategic management. She also runs two companies. One, she's a well sought after wedding photographer out in Johannesburg. And so if you need a high quality wedding photographer, please give her a shout. She will do the things. And yeah, she specializes in wedding photography. And then a second company is together with her husband, Langa Mbonambi. They run a South African clothing brand called Sinkwa Setu. And I'm actually rocking one of their jackets tonight. I see she's rocking one of them as well. And yeah, their family takes joy and pride in being African, which is one of the things I love about them. That means that they are diverse, vibrant, colorful people. And they stand out, they laugh out loud, and they love for the people, which I love. And so outside of doing these company things and changing the world and rocking the industry, she loves discovering, she loves learning, she loves traveling, and trying their best to live with the intention of crafting their own story as they go along. And so she, like I said, she's married to Langa, and they have 4 beautiful children. And so please ask her mothering questions in this chat. I'm kidding. But maybe we should get her back to come and run parenting in crisis, which I'm sure would be exciting. Then we also have Michael Tavera with us. Michael, do you want to say, just give a wave and a shout out?
Yeah, hey everybody, good to be here tonight.
Awesome. And Michael is husband to Tara and father to 3 children, ages 8, 5, and 2. And so also a master in parenting. And we definitely need to get all of you back for parenting things. But Michael is an entrepreneur, an investor, venture capitalist, leadership strategist. He's born in Harare in Zimbabwe, schooled in Zimbabwe and the UK and South Africa. He did a BCom in economics degree from the University of Western Australia. He's a co-owner and managing director of Aventure Estate. He's a director of various companies in sectors such as the agri, processing, energy efficiency, apparel, and property. He's also a director and trustee of MPOs and trust in education and faith-based organizations. He loves leadership, he loves sport, he loves adventure, he loves music, nature, And he's really passionate about Africa. He's committed to change and development throughout faithful living to enhance lives and creativity and unity across the continent. So Michael, we are so excited to have you with us tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Calvin.
Awesome. And then we have Amore Strauss with us this evening.
Hello.
With a really, really cool virtual background that she's rocking over there. I called it legit earlier.
Legit.
So after obtaining a BTech degree in interior design, Amore started her career as a deco buyer and exporting procurement agency. And then 11 years later and 8 jobs later, she founded her own studio. She was the founder and owner of Studio Monochrome Interior Design. And so most of the year was spent in managerial and a mentoring position. In 2016, she added a postgraduate diploma in business management and administration to her education. And so to keep up her Studio Monochrome, to keep it relevant even in the pandemic, in COVID-19, she came up with the idea of designing virtual interiors to use as backgrounds for video calling. And so if you see her amazing virtual background, which we all need to get because it's so amazing, yeah, please hit her up. She's also currently busy with an executive MBA program to further equip her for the ever-changing world of business and entrepreneurship. And so thank you so much, Amore. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank
you. And so to kick us off in our conversation, the conversation is titled Faith in Business. But maybe you've joined us this evening and you don't find yourself in that position. We welcome you into the conversation, and our hope is that this conversation will still serve the vision and dreams that you have for your life. There's a meme that I've been reading, panelists, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it says, I'm not going to add 2020 to my age because I didn't use that year.
I saw that.
And it's funny, but as I think about it, I'm thinking, man, I don't want to look back at 2020 and have that said about my year. I don't want this year and this pandemic to go by and miss out on purpose and opportunities that could be found in this space. We are so aware that there are real challenges facing us right now, but we don't want our mindsets to fall into the trap of thinking, man, I can't achieve anything because life has stopped. And so even to put it in a faith background, we don't assume that our purpose stays the same in every season, right? We have to learn to pivot, right? That's the word that businesses are using right now. Pivoting. Businesses are learning to pivot, right? I've got to pivot to go online. I've got to pivot to a delivery system now. I've got to pivot to making masks, Sinkosetu. Everybody is pivoting right now, right? If you want to survive, you have to learn to pivot. And if you want to thrive in the season. And so I think if our response was to pause in the season, then we have to step back. And even in terms of our faith, we have to go, God, man, would you help me realize what my purpose and opportunities are in the season? Would you help me pivot? And COVID has presented us with some real unprecedented hurdles, right, in terms of our business. So Amore, to kick off our question, how has COVID-19 affected your business and what have you done to navigate this uncertainty?
Calvin, I must say it came as a surprise. A week before, 2 weeks before, we were still hearing about other countries going into lockdown. What is this thing? Can you believe people in Italy are not going out? What is going on? And we were still actually making our offices nicer. We were installing the kitchen and we were like making the office really nice. We ordered new desks and we were just kitting it out just to find out that we have to go home. This year, we actually started off and everybody was saying 2020 vision. Everybody's so excited for year 2020 and everybody's got all these plans for their businesses. And it was the first year, it's the third year of our business now, that we actually decided to employ full-time staff. And I literally employed them 2 months before lockdown. But it was still like a really big surprise. And then we all went home. But now what's happened is before lockdown, we had these contracts in Russia, big architectural drafting contracts that would sustain us for the entire year. And then going home, what happened to interior design and architecture is that everything stopped. So even though we could work from home, we didn't have any clients. All our projects were canceled. And all the projects that we've been targeting up to now was commercial. So we do restaurants and retail and offices, but suddenly no one can spend any money on renovating. They literally paused all projects and or otherwise canceled them. So from having a cash flow set up for the entire year ahead, which is a very good position for an interior design company to be, and surprisingly comfortable, it got like the rug got pulled from under our feet completely. And it was just taken away in one instance. But I suppose I've always been questioning the relevance of interior design. I've always realized that if there's a recession, just a normal recession, interior design is a luxury service, so it will suffer in a recession. So I've always been questioning, how do I make sure my occupation stays relevant? And when I was studying with Stellenbosch University, the postgraduate diploma, we also had a course about innovation management, and then already we realized the World Economic Forum was already saying that creativity and innovation would be the skills you would need for the future, because already just from normal digital revolution, so many people would be losing their jobs. So for me, it felt like everything was just happening much faster and at the same time. Things that I could postpone and not worry about and will come later was immediate. Yeah. So what I then did, I'll tell you about the pivoting later in the other question. But what I then realized is I just have to quickly try and reduce our expenses, because it's uncertain, and it doesn't matter how good a business person you are. If you don't know what's ahead, you can't plan for it. You just don't know. Don't know when you're going back. You don't know if your clients will ever pick up their projects again. So for me in my life, I've always experienced God working the most when I'm in a challenging position. So even though it's uncertain, I think I just wanted to try and sustain it and shed all the excess and just try and make sure that everybody's protected as much as I possibly can. And then let him be. So even though it's uncertain, I'm almost not stressed about it. I'm a bit excited. I'm nervously excited, but like those butterflies, like you can feel God is moving and he's working, and he's done it completely different. He's doing it completely different to how we would think he needs to do it or how we would plan. But it's okay. We just need to be cautious and not obviously be irresponsible at the moment.
Yeah. That's really good. Thanks so much, Amare. Michael, what about for you? How's your experience been during COVID and business, and how have you been navigating these times?
Yeah, thanks, Amare. That was great listening to your story. For us, one of the businesses, the main business I'm involved in, the family business, we've got we're a wine producer and we breed horses. So I think, obviously we've got hospitality and alcohol and sport. And so they're the three things that were quite majorly affected, obviously, by this whole thing. Thankfully now with level 3, we've got a little bit of room with alcohol movement now. But I think that was a big hit, because we literally went to zero income. And because you don't know how long. I mean, initially we obviously thought it was going to be 21 days, and then we'll start, getting back into it. Thankfully, we sort of put the message out to our staff that, we can expect that this might go on longer than the 21 days. And so we just have to be prepared for it. And I think all the uncertainty, I mean, we hear that word so much now, it's getting kind of boring, but all the uncertainty made it very difficult to plan, particularly for staff. In a lot of in the food sector, which basically is derived from agriculture, you can keep going because there's income. People need to eat. Okay, so they can keep going, but people don't need to keep drinking alcohol. Okay, they need to keep drinking other beverages, just not alcohol. But the problem with wine is it's also agriculturally derived, and so with a farm you can't just close the door, switch off the lights, and off you go for 3 weeks or so. A farm doesn't stop. We've got to feed horses, we've got to water the vines, we've got to plow the fields. Things carry on, and so and you need people for that as well. So it's we certainly, it was a change. I think planning, we immediately had to make decisions for longer term than we thought. We couldn't just make short-term decisions, and because the problem with making a short-term decision is you make promises where you're saying this decision is for this period of time, and then when we get there, then we'll revert again, or we'll make another plan. But we couldn't do that because of the uncertainty. So we had to make longer-term decisions in a shorter space of time. And normally, long-term decisions are ones that you want to think a little bit more about, ponder a little bit more about.
Yeah.
And so that was certainly a big challenge. We did navigate it well. We had to put, pretty severe cost-cutting measures in place, change the shape of our business, change the dynamics, implement certain diversification strategies, straight away, which we're still currently implementing, and obviously just rethink what we're doing and where we're going. And again, that was from a long-term perspective, because I think we realized pretty soon that the world's changing, and it's not just going to go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a new way of doing things. But not only that, I think you've got to try and understand what the environment's going to be like, and fit into that. So I would say, just in terms of navigating, it's. I recently, and I think you might know him, and I know Monty, who helped facilitate this, and one of my mentors, Paul Donders, he's spoken to us about 4 coping mechanisms, or 4 phases of a crisis. It's basically survive, cope, restore, and then transform. And so, and as a leader, you can be in any one of those, or any 2 of those phases at a given time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might even be in 3. Yeah. And something that I just shared with the leadership group is, you have to make some of those decisions for your staff, before you can make them for yourself. So you almost put some of your staff into the next phase before you can transition into the next phase. So while I'm still surviving, my staff are into the coping. And I think that was one of the areas that I felt, this navigation of this crisis became quite important, because you think differently as an employer than you do as an employee. And obviously when you have to make the tough decisions like retrenchments or salary cuts or anything like that, it's a very difficult approach to an employee who, it might have been an employee that's been with you for a long time, and you suddenly say, well, now we're we're putting this cost-cutting measure in place, it's affecting everybody. And so we're all in this together. And because we're now implementing it, we don't know when we can reinstate, or we don't know when we're actually going to get back to a place where we can, put your salary back to its fullest, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
But the difficulty with that is that even if there's a staff member that's been with you for a long time, the reaction is still, as an employee, that how come I'm getting I'm not saying everybody's like that, but as a leader, you've got to say that everybody's in the same boat. You see, we got 5 days notice that our business wasn't going to get income. So, but I've got to give my employees 30 days notice that there's going to be no income, but just a salary cut.
Yeah.
So there's a different dynamic when it's an employer, and you've got to decide, okay, there's no income in a sudden space of time, and we've got to navigate this. But when you're dealing with your staff, it's got to be done in a very, I think a very careful way. And it's not to say that, you know, employers are better than employees, or the other way around. It's just to say that there's a different dynamic when you're dealing with one aspect to another. And as an employer, there's a very key responsibility, because when a government decision is put in place, it's then up to the employer to make that government decision work for its business, which includes every employee in that business. And so it's a fundamental responsibility for an employer to make sure that your employees are looked after, but are communicated to honestly. Now, obviously, in a time like this, you can't promise that they're going to be looked after in terms of, you know, financially and all that stuff. But what you can do is communicate that this is the plan and this is where we want to go. And unfortunately, these are some of the decisions we have to make. But like I said in the beginning, it's long-term thinking that you have to implement sooner than you would have thought. And it can't just be short-term decisions, even though there are sort of crisis decisions. A lot of the immediate decisions you've got to make have to be for the long term.
That's good. No, it's really helpful. And we'll thanks for touching on caring for your staff, because I think we're wanting to unpack that in this conversation a bit later as well. But Michael, you mentioned the 4 phases of crisis that I think can be really helpful for people. Can you just unpack them? Can you just mention them again? And then you said you can find yourself in 2 of those phases.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of study around it. I think you know, it's something that the military, I believe it's a sort of, you know, military or army that have used it in their strategies, you know, in war strategies and things like that. So I don't know the full academic study behind it, but from what I gather, so it's basically your first phase in a crisis is your survival phase. It's learning to survive, and it's about making sure that you create some sort of stability so that you can then enter into the next 3 phases. So from survival, you go into coping, and obviously it's not just one phase to the next. It's transition, and like I said, you can exist in 2 phases or even 3 at any given time. You just might be more in one than you are in the other. And so survival's followed by coping, and coping is just, you know, there's various mechanisms, and I think that a big part of that is also just around community. And so I think one of the biggest challenges with the COVID side of things is you've got there was this distancing, you know, this thing of distancing that came up into play. And so that became something where we felt, I think it subconsciously, that we were further from people than we thought. But actually, through technology, we can be closer than we initially envisaged. And especially where things like church, where, you know, so used to good community and being able to go to a place where you could, feel confident in an environment, or feel at home, or supported and whatever. So the coping side of it is certainly an important part of the phase. And then in the restoring phase, I think one has to be careful not to think of the restoring as restoring back to what was, but it's about restoring what's important. And I think this is something that I've certainly been sharing with a lot of my sort of network and friends, and that is, this is such a great opportunity to get back to our principles, get back to what our values are, the fundamentals of our life. Maybe it's family time, and certain principles, values that we've written down, just refresh them, reset, and get back to what's important. We've always heard that leadership is about, if you can lead at home, then you can lead in life, and you can lead in business. So what a great opportunity now to implement that's always been taught, but we've never had the time because we're so occupied and busy with everything else going on. I think even in business, there's certainly time that needs to be created to implement this restoration of what's actually important, what are the key foundations in order for us to go into the next phase. Architects, I think they can testify probably to this phase. It's actually being something where you're designing the new way, the new healthy look, the new healthy being, so that you can then get to the next final stage of transformation. And that's basically just, being adapting to what you need to be for what lies ahead. So that's as much. I know there's deeper studies. I know there'll be various approaches to this, and I think different leadership strategists would have different approaches. But those are just 4 that I've just learned recently, and I think they apply pretty well to a crisis like this.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's helpful. We've done it as a team as well. We've done it both individually. I think it's good to reflect on where you find yourself in your own personal capacity in those phases, and then as well as a team or business, where you find yourself in that. Thanks so much, Michael. It was helpful. Cool. Nati, what about you?
Wow, guys, I could sit and listen to you guys the whole evening. I don't mind.
But I've been navigating COVID and business.
Sure. So I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur, right? So like I'd say I'm involved in 4 businesses. I mean, the one being the wedding photography and cinematography business, and then I also run I co-run like a wedding directory, and so where brides can basically come and find their wedding suppliers. And one of the things that we do is to run a wedding expo. And actually, it was actually supposed to happen next week. And then like you mentioned, we make clothing. And then I'm also I blog and I write about a few things, from homeschooling to parenting to to Christian living and things like that. And one of the things that I do under that is creating content for brands. So we work a little bit with with brand to create content to use on our platforms. So But I guess having said that, the main thing, the main income, well, my main source of income is actually the photography. That is the, that's the biggest focus. So, and like Emma was saying, for me, 2020 just started on a high. We're doing so well. There was restructuring in place, rebranding, there was, plans of, buying new equipment, buying an additional vehicle, stuff like that, we were, we were in it until lockdown happened, and we're just like, what do you mean? And even, I think even when the lockdown happened, I just didn't anticipate that it would it would take as long as it had. We just thought, okay, you know what, we're going into this lockdown thing for 3 weeks, and then we're gonna, come out of it, and life will start getting back to, to usual. But clearly, that wasn't the case. So, I mean, so with the first two businesses, with the wedding directory and the photography, that I mean, we're gonna be out of business for probably at least a year, because up until level 1 there are no gatherings, and even when I guess we start seeing gatherings again, I doubt it will be, just, okay, now let's do weddings. It will probably get back, start at, gatherings of 50 or whatnot. And I mean, my market, I serve mostly the, the Black wedding market. And I mean, 200 people is a small wedding. So, so yeah, I actually don't anticipate that we will see weddings for another year. At least until the end of the year, I don't think we'll be in business. So that was, I guess, something that kind of took me aback. But I must say, I think that besides the I guess business itself, obviously the reason why a lot of people are stressed is because their income is mainly affected, right? And I think for me, my first thought, like similar to what Emma was saying as well, is I actually surprisingly haven't been stressed by it at all. I think my first thought has just been, hey man, God will provide. I trust in God fully, to provide. So I'm really, I think, not stressed about that aspect. I think just in my journey, I've had such a journey with God over the the past few years, where I've literally seen Him carry me in the most amazing of ways. So when it comes to I think income, my trust has just been fully on God providing and God making a plan. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, is that now with we're fortunate enough that I guess we are in businesses that are in different industries, and so we're able, even though the eventing side of things is on a standstill for a while, there's the stuff that we're able to do under Sinkwasage. And even that, I mean, like I would not be telling the truth if I would say that I sat and for weeks and strategized on how to pivot the business and things like that. For me, I think even this time has given me such an abundance of like resting time and time to actually just have conversations with God and times to think, and man, like God's grace has really been, it's really just been in abundance. So even that, how we ended up, now, being in the PPE business. I mean, we sell sanitizers now, we sell masks, all these medical masks and things like that. And how I found myself there is I think has really just been by grace and favor, and I think just being in that space of leaning on God and hearing from Him. I think, I mean, obviously this stuff doesn't come, didn't take God, by surprise, and He's still the same Father that He was, and providing, I guess, to us and to my family, before the lockdown. So I'm pretty confident that he'll continue to. So I think that's been my posture of, you know what, Lord, first and foremost, my trust is in you. I appreciate the talents that He's given me, the skills that He's given me, the brains that He's given me. But ultimately, my trust is not in the things that I can do, but my trust is in God, who can do beyond what I think I can do. So I think really that's been my posture.
That's good. You're still the same Father.
Yeah.
Welcome to those that are sort of just hopped in the conversation late. We're really glad that you can join us. I'm joined by three amazing panelists, and we've been diving into and just chatting through how they've been navigating COVID. Just in their business in this time of uncertainty, and really rich thoughts coming out of the conversation. But if you have joined in a bit late, please do drop a comment in the comment sections, in the chat. Drop your name, let us know that you are with us. Please feel free to ask any questions. We'll be responding to some of the questions a bit later during the conversation. So please feel free to drop your questions in the comment section, and we'll make some time to respond to them. But Michael, you touched on staff care a bit earlier. How can we remain healthy under the stress of the uncertainty? How do we care for our employees and customers during this really stressful time?
Yeah, I think the first thing that needs to be communicated, well, you have to communicate for one thing, but it has to be communicated from the outset that we're in this together. So no matter what the decisions that come, we're trying to do this as a unit. We're trying to do it as a collective. I think one of the most important things for an employer is not to strip back everything and just isolate and look after your own well-being. I think as much as that's needed, as much as there might be an urge to do that, it's important. Now, I'm not saying that financially and with everything that you have to support. What I'm saying is that the effect is on everybody, and so there should be, as much as you can, and through fairness, have equal effect across your staff contingent. And that means that it's got to be communicated clearly that this is happening to everybody. And if you've got a hierarchy type structure, you have to communicate obviously first to your senior management and say, listen, this is what we're doing, but it's going to be happening to everybody. And I think we also have to understand that what happens in South Africa is very different from what happens around the rest of the world, because we're a developing country, and we've got a big gap between the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. Yeah. So we don't have this these relief policies that that are sort of plug and play and apply to everybody, because in a lot of developed countries it's easy, it's sort of plug and play type thing where you can apply for some relief, or the government just initiates it, out it goes, and everybody gets their fair share or pro rata according to where you fit into society. That doesn't happen in South Africa because not everybody's registered on the system. We don't know everybody in South Africa. There's so much, the demographic and the ratios are way different, so we're dealing with a whole lot of, it's a far more complex system in that regard. And so that's where private business, it has to be, has to understand the importance of that fairness and of being on a level playing field when it comes to the impact that's happening. And then I would also go and say something that might sound contradictory, but I mean it in the sense that it needs to be what that decision to create fairness and equity with the impact needs to be made in conjunction with the decision to sustain your business on a long-term level, because it's ultimately your business. I mean, I'm sure Amara and Unathi would agree with this, but you're in business to help people, okay? You're in business to create jobs, okay? That's one of the reasons you're there. It's work, it's income, you're creating livelihood, and even if you don't employ anybody, you're still helping people, because you've got suppliers and you've got, there's a system. That's what economics is. And so when you make these decisions for business for long term, what you actually got to say to yourself is, we will get through this, and I've got to make sure that I look after my own business in order that we can recover and get into that transform and then rebuild and create jobs again. Because you could actually end up with almost like two extreme decisions where you say, well, either I give everything to my staff and I shut down the business, and so you've got everything you need from the business, and that'll take you to 2 months from now, but then there's no more business. And so that means there is no more future, and there's no more chance to create jobs again, or to rebuild. Or you can say, this is a big impact. We've got to take the knock together. Let's get through this. Cut where we can, but the staff have to understand that as a business owner, as an employer, you need to position yourself for long-term rebuilding and success. And so I think, those are the two important factors, that it's getting the staff to understand that as far as possible, we can create fairness and equity, that everybody has a similar effect. But at the same time, I have to make tough decisions, because as a business, the role that I play in the country's economy and in job creation, which is where we want to go, and we have to know our constitution, we have to know what the vision for our country is, and so that's becomes an important part. And it's not easy, but those are the two main things, I think, practically, that we've got to keep in mind when it comes for our employees. I'll let someone else talk before I talk about customers, because that's also a different thing. But
no, that's good. Really helpful stuff there, Michael. If you're watching with us, please feel free to ask any questions. Maybe some thoughts are sparking as the panelists are speaking. We'd love to hear your questions, so please drop them in the live chat, and we'll create some time a bit later to respond to them. Unathi, any further thoughts on how do we care effectively for our customers and staff during this time?
I think the first part of the question, you talked about how to remain healthy in this time of uncertainty, and I've just been thinking about even just this word that's been, I guess, the buzzword now, the uncertainty, and just thinking about how it it looks like, well, the fact, the uncertainty fact has been magnified now, but the future has always been uncertain. We're uncomfortable now. It makes us uncomfortable now because we're not in control. And, when we put 1 and 1 together, it doesn't necessarily make, 2 like we used to, but we have this idea that, we are so in control of our lives, of everything. And we are so in control of tomorrow, but essentially, essentially we're not. And something like, like this crisis has actually just, I think for me, come to show us that actually we don't, we don't have control. But I guess we are so used to, I think, our actions determining, results, that, it's so easy for us to actually just, like rely on our strength and what we can, on what we can do versus, I guess, relying completely on God. So once again, for me, the uncertainty has, hasn't necessarily put me in a place of fear and uncertainty, but it's actually put me more in, made me to, it's put me more at that place where I was supposed to initially be at anyway, which is, just the place of, fully trusting and resting in God. And I really, so for me, all these questions are actually just raising more questions. I know, like, this is supposed to be a session where we give answers, but it's actually raised more questions. Like Michael was talking just about, South Africa's inequality. I was reading, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, stats that I think in last year already, South Africa had, the highest income inequality at this time. Sure. So, and I think for me, what I've just been thinking more of, even just beyond myself, looking after myself and, my family, has just been everyone else, like, out there, and just realizing that even though, there's concerns about, work or businesses, stopping and things like that, but really literally for a huge chunk of this country, for millions of other people, it's what are we going to eat? Sure. There's no work. What are we going to have something to eat tomorrow? I mean, now there's even been cases of, children being, I guess more cases of children being, admitted in hospitals because of malnutrition, Sure. So honestly, I've really tried to think beyond, as much as, yes, facing challenges and things like that, but I've really just, tried to think, I think, beyond ourselves, and even down to, I guess, sorry, I know I'm not answering your question. Even down to who we're supposed to be as a church, and as a church, meaning like the body of Christ, what the body of Christ is supposed to look like, how close are we to that first church, that says that they had all things in common. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm just thinking that, I guess, as a church, as a body of Christ, as a community, there shouldn't be there shouldn't be people who are in lack while others have. Yeah. So that's just been something that's that's really just been on my mind and my heart, is, are we really being the church that we're supposed to be doing, or are we really caught up taking care of us and ours, and magnifying our own problems so much, with the rest of our country, our nation, is actually like really, really suffering.
No, that's a good. It's a good point, Anati, because majority of the country is suffering, and is in lack, and so how do we, I guess, help us with some practical ways of how we can go about that, particularly
And
as. Yes, go for it, Michael.
Sorry, Carl. I just while I've on the thought, Nati, you mentioned, you were saying a lot of this is raising questions in your mind, and I think that's, just in terms of faith, in terms of leadership and making decisions. There's an amazing quote by a leadership expert, a famous leadership expert who's written many books, a chap called Michael Hyatt. I'm sure you've heard of him, but he said that, he used to think that as being a leader was about having all the answers. But he soon realized that being a leader is about asking the right questions. And so it's just an amazing thought that he put out, that really gets us to a point where we're looking all the time for somebody to give us an answer.
Yeah.
But actually it's about asking the questions. And so from a practical point of view, it was very interesting. We sat with our management and we were asking questions. What should we do? How should we do it? And the reason you ask those questions is because you need to make the decision. And so, by getting the input of your staff, you actually understand some of the concerns and the needs from their point of view as well. And it was actually one of our staff members that came up with the idea that they could get a whole bunch of food vouchers, because you could buy them, in bulk and distribute them to the right people. And so we had, on a farm, we have a lot of labor, and it's seasonal labor. So, suddenly when this happened and we're locked down, we're not permitted to have everybody come and work on the farm. We have to work with minimal staff. These people are out of jobs. So there's only certain essential staff that can come and do work, but a lot of them are out. So it was an idea that came from managers to say, well, why don't we just get a whole bunch of food vouchers?
Sure.
It costs the company less than it would if you had to, pay a day's wage or whatever.
Yeah.
But it meets the essential need of feeding somebody,
Yeah.
And that I think is crucial. So just to support what you said, going back to what the real essential need is. If you can do that, and then from there, build from there. And that again comes out of asking the right questions, and so that this whole seeking part of it is, I think, a crucial part to trying to understand where we can help and what we can do to help.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Do you have any other thoughts, Anati? And then we'll jump to Amare.
So yes, I think just also just linking again to what what Michael was saying, even just about leadership and influence. I really I guess really just believe that even as like being a business leader or a business owner or leader is actually such a such an important role as well, because at the core of it, our businesses are supposed to be providing service and are supposed to be providing value to the communities around us. And the question is, in this time, what kind of value does our communities looking for? Or what kind of value do they need? How do we actually provide value in this time? And I just really believe in being in that business leaders obviously are given in a certain grace for influence. It doesn't matter if it's a small business or a large business, and I really just believe in being a good steward of that influence. I think just I guess even in the audience, probably people that are tuning in are people that own businesses. So I think I really just want to encourage us that it's a calling and there's a grace, but also it's a position of influence. Yeah, and it's an opportunity for us to actually really, provide value in this time for our communities.
Yeah, it's good. What a challenge that is. I think someone once called it a splendid misery.
Well said.
Yeah. Amaray, what are your thoughts?
Yo, you guys spark so many ideas. I'm just writing keywords down here to remember what I wanted to respond to all of them. But I agree with you 100%, Unathi. I've been meaning to say that I feel like this is a Spider-Man quote. With great power comes great responsibility. And I really feel like this is the time when leaders get tested. This is the time for our president, for all the presidents of the world, for all the leaders in all aspects of life. This is the time when some people will make good decisions and selfless decisions, and some will do the opposite. And I think apart from caring, just in general for everybody, because it's almost like what you're touching on, and what about the people that are worried about having something to eat, like that actually breaks my brain to try and imagine how tough that must be for someone. I've been going there in my head, and then I'm going, I can't even imagine. If you are in a position where your bare essentials have been taken away, and you're as uncertain about when it's coming back. What I've had to be focused on is also about the mental health of the people around me. I've realized that like I belong to some business network groups, etc., and business leaders are suffering as well, and it's almost like this splendid misery could lay heavy on your shoulders at this moment. And apart from worrying about just the normal recession and the rand value and your business and its relevance and its maintenance, and apart from that, you also have your kids at home, and you suddenly don't even have your 8 or 9 hours that 12 or 16 that you have been working every day. You don't have those. You've only got 5, because you actually have to tag team with your spouse, and adding those challenges. They've also been added onto your employees. So what we've been realizing is also just to have understanding for the fact that it's not normal. People are not going to be responding to you as quickly as they used to. They're having trouble to just get a quiet space, get a good internet connection, be able to actually do what you're expecting of them, because having the same expectations it's not realistic. It's just not, even for businesses that can continue. So from our side, I think we've been this one little Facebook meme that stuck with me in the last week was that we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. And I think the reality is that every single person in the world is affected. Every single person is in the storm, and every single person finds it difficult. It's not easy for anybody. But the levels of difficulty are different, and the factors that play into that, it's different. So it's a whole nother stress for the business owner who's still got his house and his food, but he's worried about his staff, versus the other person who doesn't even have a home. And I think, as always, like you guys have also been saying, God has always been there, and He will still be there, and we. The world has always been uncertain. As always, we just have to realize this responsibility that we've been given. I've also felt it a few times that it's almost like if God has given us skills to come up with solutions and come up with plans and lead and strategize, then it's, for me, I've always felt like I'm responsible to use those skills. I'm not allowed to just now go hide under a rock and look after myself.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fair to the skills that he's given me.
Yeah.
I have to go look at the other people and see under which rocks they are lying and find them and assist them. So yeah, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, this responsibility, and I think not yeah, it's overwhelming to have resources and to have health and to have, like, everything is a grace. Even just having a good idea is a grace. Like, you didn't come up with that on your own. You got given that idea.
Yeah.
And then to realize that responsibility and to actually just use it for the best of everybody.
Sure. No, that's so good. I think it's Romans 12:8 that says, if you have a gift of leadership, lead diligently. Some other translations would say lead well, lead zealously. And so I do think it sets just a call to steward what we do well, and to the best of our abilities, and to feel the weight and the joy and the pressure and everything else in between with that.
I don't think President Cyril Ramaphosa realized what he was signing up for when he became president. So, but I'm very glad he's not hiding under a rock, and he's doing his part, leading the country. Not easy.
Great. So touching on doing that well, how do we adjust our current business model to remain relevant to the new reality?
Michael.
Michael, I think we're calling on you, bro.
We look to you.
I was waiting for the wisdom to come from you guys, because I wanted to hear the answer to this. I'll give it a shot. Look, I think with all of these questions, I think what we have to realize, we're not giving answers that are down pat. This is the right way to do it. These are things that we're experiencing. That uncertainty is such a broad term, and we've got to. The first question, I think it was, how do we navigate the uncertainty? I'm still navigating the uncertainty. So I haven't navigated it. I haven't completed, and I don't think anybody has. We're still doing it. I've phoned mentors, sort of looked up who are the oldest people that I know, because they would have been through the most. Okay. And so I phoned, have you been through anything like this? And what did you do? And and they said, well, to be honest, this is new. Yes, we had, end of World War II, and there was a thing, and then we had a breakout of some disease, but it was only linked to a certain region, and then we had financial crisis, and then we had whatever. But there hasn't been something like this before. So we're very much in new territory, and I think as much as that can be scary, I think it's very exciting, because we can live to tell something pretty cool once we've got to a certain destination through this. To say, well, we navigated something that was pretty crazy, and in our lifetime, this is what we did, and it taught us something that we would never have probably thought about if it didn't come about. So I think there's so many things that this has spurred on. And with the respect to business, yes, business models that we've never thought about are going to come out of this, and we're going to see fantastic innovative ideas. And I think it's important to realize that we're in a time that we've been placed here by God. It's not, he knew that we could handle this. He would have, taken us to heaven before this thing happened if we couldn't, I think. So, because he's still around, I think he said, you can handle this, and you've got what it takes. So use your innovation, use the creativity that I've given you. That's, you know, in this image that I've created you in. And I think the other thing is, you know, when we're designing a model, or when we're trying to progress through uncertainty and challenge, we've got to have wisdom. What does that mean? I mean, and you go to Proverbs and you read about what wisdom is, and the very first and principal thing about wisdom is that the fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. And so all we have to realize, and this crisis is an answer, is helping us realize that. It's saying, I mean, Unati and Amora, you both alluded to this earlier. We're not in control. This thing has shown everybody that we're not in control of this world and what happens. As much as business leaders can be quite controlling in their character, or, you know, in certain ways, others can be very releasing, but it's about understanding that we're actually not in control of this. And so it's then asking the question, well, who is in control? And so that having that reverent fear, that knowing God is in control. So that's the foundation of wisdom. And so let this crisis speak to you that you're not in control. And if you're afraid, you know, of actually losing control, or finally having the revelation that you are not in control, if that's a scary thought, because it will be for some people, that, wow, I'm not in control. That's a scary thought for some people. That's a good thing, because now you're starting to understand, now you're getting to the foundation of wisdom. And that's you know, knowing God's in control. So I think, just seeking that wisdom is important. There was another thought, but I'll let somebody else speak in the meantime while I remember it.
Nati,
Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
So for me, I'd like to just refer back to what I said earlier, the point I made earlier about you know, businesses providing value. So I guess, unfortunately for me, in the events industry, it's not really quite clear what that will look like once, you know, this whole thing is over. So right now, I'm just in a place of, you know, waiting to see what, I guess, you know, life after COVID, you know, will look like, and what my clients' needs, my clients' highest needs will be in regards to the services that I offer, to actually see how then I can you know, I can adjust my offering, etc. So I guess in my this is my reality in my industry. But again, I think that if truly our business's primary goal is to provide you know, value and provide for a felt need, you know, then we will be able to, you know, to navigate, you know, that question, you know, better. And also, guys, like, I would just say, like, ask God. I know, you know, it might seem like a, you know, airy-fairy, you know, answer, but, you know, we're here discussing faith in crisis. And honestly, as a business owner, if truly it's God's will for you to be in the business that you're in, if you feel like it's something that's God given, then who knows the answers better than God himself, you know? So really just taking out that time to and I know, you know, and reading the articles and getting you know, getting well, thoughts and everything from people around you, community, family, mentors, other business, you know, other, you know, business people in business is great. But also, I think sometimes we listen to those things more than we, or let me say, for myself, you know, sometimes the first place that I go to is not necessarily, hey God, what do you think of this? Having the conversation, you know, with God himself, the one that I believe that all of this comes from, you know. So yeah, so I think in short, that's my answer.
No, that's good. Thanks, Donati. Marais.
So, so the first weekend was like a long weekend of lockdown, and I was like, okay, family time, exercising with the family. Okay, Monday comes, and I'm like, okay, interior design. What's going to happen to interior design? And I got this complete vision that nothing's going to go back to normal. I didn't think after 3 weeks that my industry would go back to normal at all, and at the very least not for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like, but what am I going to do? I've just appointed these people, and we've got everything set up. We've got the nice offices. And then I watched a very short video from by Simon Sinek, 5-minute little inspirational thing, that he was basically talking about disruption and how obviously it's a major worldwide disruption, and the businesses that pivot will make it, and the businesses that don't won't. Now, it depends on your industry, of course, because some industries will always be necessary, like it depends if it's healthcare, if it's food, if it's clothing. Those types of things are always necessary. But I realized that our industry is not a necessary industry. And I walked out from his little 5-minute thing, and I walked around the pool, and I'm going. And at that very moment, I thought, what is my what are the skills of my team, and what can we do now? Yeah. What can we do immediately? And I realized we can do virtual interiors. And I've been part of a lot of big Zoom calls, and I've seen people in their underwear in the meeting, and like everybody was kind of understanding in the beginning, but like very soon it reaches a level where you have a certain, like a minimum requirement of professionalism in your Zoom meetings. There's like certain dress code, at least, brush your hair and whatever. But initially it wasn't the case. And then I just realized I'm going to start punting it in those big meetings, because people's brands get completely lost in this virtual world. They've been spending so much money on developing these corporate identities for them to be easily recognizable, and now suddenly everybody's sitting in their kitchen, and you don't know who's the CEO and who's important, who's viewing the zoo, what are they trying to sell you. You don't remember all the faces. There are just too many. And I just want to show you guys another one, just so you understand what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
But we've basically, like this one we've done for the university studying with, like a library scene, and we've done ones for various brands. You can see, like, depending on what their company requirements are, the idea that we actually thought of is make it look perspectively correct, that this person could be sitting in this room. It's not just a flat image with a brand on it, because that, you can just. I was about to say, yeah. So this is what we do and what we specialize in. And so then the burden. So this is all exciting. The idea came to me, and no one can ever take credit for that. God definitely gave me the idea. But now I search for it. No one else in the world is doing exactly this. Oh, wow. Okay. There are 3 million Zoom users per day. There is a massive market. There is a time limit to this. This is important immediately. If I miss the boat, the boat's going to pass, and it's not going to be relevant. Yeah. But it's new. So it's like when Apple came out with the iPod, people didn't know that they needed this. Now I first need to educate them that they need it, and I need to get to market, and I need to get there quickly, and I need to make lots of templates. So we've literally in the lockdown period, since that Monday, we've been setting up an online shop and Facebook marketing and building a template portfolio. And I've been in so many business networks. So it's basically, I started a business when I got my baby, and now I'm starting a startup in the lockdown. So it's just absolutely crazy. Like, never mind surviving the business that I have. It's like, okay. But it's completely overwhelming. And at the moment, we're at the point where we need funding to be able to scale it up, because I don't have enough money to market it to the the size of the market that it currently requires.
Yeah.
And the responsibilities are crazy, and it's all over the place. And I'm so busy learning about e-commerce. I've never been in this industry. It's new, but it's exciting. So I am very energized by it. I feel like it's an idea that I got that I, like I was saying earlier, that I'm not allowed to not action on it. I have to action it. I have to try and make this the pivot for our company, for us to survive this. And then when we get real interiors again, that would be great. But at the moment, luckily, I can design this high-rise office for this client and this client is actually based in New York, and he doesn't have to have the cash to actually build an office like that. He spends fixed amount, and we design his dream office for him. And it gives people lots of satisfaction, and it helps us to stay positive and excited.
Wow.
So what I wanted to say earlier is I was thinking about how we used to maybe eat lamb, but like the Israelites in the desert had to pick up manna, and they didn't plan that, and they maybe wouldn't have chosen it if they were sitting at a buffet, but that was what God was giving them at the time, and he was looking after them. And he might not have been looking after them the way they would have wanted. They maybe wanted the buffet and the lamb, but they got the manna and they survived, and he was looking after them. So I think if we can just embrace the manna, we'll be okay.
That's so good, hey? That's so good. Because the manna was actually enough. It was everything that they that they needed. And I'm even thinking of, like, things like their clothes, it says that their shoes didn't wear out. So in our minds, I was just thinking, if I was leaving and, going on this long journey, I'd think, okay, maybe I need to pack, 5 pairs of shoes or whatnot, but literally the same, like the shoes that they wore, like, God knew what he was doing. The shoes that they were wearing didn't wear out, whereas they had a different idea of what probably what that would look like. And even with the manna, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about how it was enough. I mean, we eat, right, the meat and the breads and the vegetables and all that stuff, to feed our bodies with nutrition, but in that manner, in that one thing, it was actually enough to sustain them. That's so good.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Sure, man.
Were the shoes made by Cinco Setu?
Definitely. I also wanted to say, sorry, just to your point again, just about, when, life gets back to normal again, and just to the point of, I guess, how to adjust, business model and things like that. That I think going forward, or in a year's time, some businesses actually won't be necessary. And that's okay. But at the same time, many new opportunities will arise. So I guess it's just taking us back to that point where I was saying of the primary goal being to provide value, because maybe then your current business as it is not, or maybe it might just be in this current, I mean, obviously for my business, there's like, in the next year or so, there's absolutely no value that I can provide to anyone, because there is no need for the service, and so in this time, maybe for some businesses, they really like, not needed, at all, but maybe after this, they will be, but for some, maybe when we, in a year's time, they will be not needed at all.
No, but and you know what? You have to be honest with yourself. If that's your business, like I had to quickly be honest with myself. There's no point in trying to sell something. It's no point in selling ice to Eskimos. It's not going to help me to try and just keep on doing something that's not relevant. Like you were saying, like I need to find something that is valuable and offer that. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah.
So good. We have about 8-ish minutes left. That's
Wow,
eight,
already.
8-ish, not 80. Yeah. Michael, a question came through that maybe you want to answer. What will you prioritize in your businesses in the new normal?
Yeah, I think, what I mentioned earlier about just getting back to principles, ensuring that you've got, for example, just review your values, refresh those. What are your values? What are your principles? What are the key things that you want in your life? And from that, let your business model come from that, because that's sort of defining who you are, and what you're hoping to achieve. And I think it also it speaks about what you want to what your desires are in terms of the impact you want to make, how you want to help people, what your business is, because a business is ultimately a solution. It's bringing a solution or a cool idea to a certain situation or circumstance. So I think literally the first thing in terms of prioritizing is values. Why are you doing what you're doing? I think that's something we can't ever get enough of. We'd have to do it and remind ourselves of it every so often. Also sorry, just to emphasize that a bit more, it's, again, a proverb, I think it's Proverbs 16, we can make our plans, but the Lord directs our steps. And so, it goes with what we've been saying tonight. It doesn't mean just because we're not in control, or, if we say to ourselves, we don't know what's going to happen, and let's have faith that God's in control. That doesn't mean sit back and do nothing and just let God take over control and believe he's going to work everything out. We have to actually put a lot of action into it, because that is what faith is.
Yeah.
It's actually dead unless there's action involved, unless there's some deeds involved. And that proverb says we can make our plans, but the Lord directs our steps. It doesn't say we can sit back and relax, but the Lord directs our steps, or we can chill out and watch the world, unfold or correct itself, and then the Lord will direct our steps. It actually means make your plans, put some plans into place. And if things change and, God directs your steps a slightly different direction, well, that's great, because you actually needed that plan and that momentum in order for you to be directed better. A ship with a rudder doesn't turn if it's not moving. You can turn that rudder as much as you want. The ship will not turn. It needs to be moving. It needs to have that plan in motion. And then a slight change of the angle of the rudder will cause the ship to turn. And so you will get in the right direction when that happens. And so I think it's just a matter of where that comes from, is making sure that you've got your priorities right, and that you've got values instilled in your business, that your model is not just about, making money or, building the next best thing, or getting yourself onto a platform that's going to make you more famous than you were yesterday. Whatever the case, it's about making sure that your values are expressed in your product and in your service, because that's what people are after. And the world where we've been through a crisis, customers and the market, people get to a place where they realize why they should support a certain business or not. I guarantee, with our country, we're going to see public-private partnerships redefined in a lot of ways, because there's going to be, people want to partner with the right people because they're more effective, because their belief system is that much more effective. Too often in the past, there's been times where the belief system's not there, or there's a corrupt agenda to what's happening. And so the partnerships have just not been built on the right foundations.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just getting those foundations right. It's really sitting down, writing down your vision, writing down your values, making sure that your business model includes everything about why you're doing what you're doing, and making sure that you can remind yourself of it frequently as you build your business. Yeah.
No, that's really good. Does anybody have any closing thoughts they wanted to leave with our viewers? If so, I'm going to ask you to leave it in 20 seconds is your time limit, because we're wanting to just honor time. But yeah, any closing thoughts from any of you?
I would say, just to add to what Michael was saying now, the Israelites still had to gather the manna. It wasn't put in a basket nicely next to their bed in the morning. And that's exactly that. If God is giving us responsibilities and ideas and tools and resources, we still have to use them. You can't sit back. You're not allowed to. You have to use your graces.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good.
I really do think that Michael just summed it up. That should have been the end. Nicely. I think for me, like I was saying, this whole thing has like really just turned my whole world upside down in terms of, just questions of, what am I doing? Like calling wise, am I doing what, God has called me to do? What am I doing with the things that God has given me, with the things that God has put in my hand? And even as a business, and I think even as a family, it's not a coincidence that we live in this community that we live in. So even beyond my just the clients that I serve, the community that we've been put in, what is our responsibilities? And I've just been reading again about the parable of like the talents, and how God gave the talents, and so God has given us things, and He expects a return. And I just don't know if I am like fully at that place where I can confidently say, what, Lord, here is your return. And I'm really just wrestling and thinking just about that as what am I called to do? Lord, what do you say about this business? What do you say about this? And how can I really make an impact? And how can I add my brick into this church that we're called to build?
Yeah. So good. So good. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in on our conversation today. Such fruitful conversation. Some of my own takeaways that I've been writing down here is there's just such a call as business leaders to understand the times. There's a reminder that God is still the same Father in the pandemic that He was before lockdown. There's a need as business leaders to communicate clearly, to keep asking the right questions, to ask ourselves, what kind of value do people need? There's an understanding that God has given us a grace of leadership, and to carry that call while there's a call to understand that times are changing. There's Michael touched on how he consulted various people that helped him navigate. There's the cheer from God saying, you can handle this. I've created you for a purpose and a time. And so God is cheering, saying, you've got this. There's the wisdom of knowing that we are not in control. And then we want to embrace the manner and embrace these opportunities and these things that God is giving to us in these times, in these feelings of wilderness and discomfort. We want to embrace what God has given us in this time, and then to understand our clients' needs and adjust our offerings to serve needs, and then the high call to prioritize our values and express our values in our products. So thank you so much, panelists, for your thoughts. It's been great just hearing from you. Thank you for your time. And yeah, we love you guys. Thank you so much for coming to share with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Very, very insightful for us as well.
Yeah. If you are watching, please, we'd love to stay in touch with you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is Numa Life Church. We were wanting to host more conversations like these. So to keep up to date with it, please hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. That's Numa Life Church. Or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram under those handles as well. That's Numa Life Church. Or you can go to our website. That's www.numalifechurch.co.za. Or actually just type Numa Life Church in Google and it'll come up and you'll find our website. And there's a contact us page. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the conversation. We'd love to know what business you are running. And one of the ways we are dreaming of a church as a church is how can we support businesses? How can we give platform? And so please DM us with your business name. Go to our YouTube, our website, tell us about your business, and we'd love to brainstorm ways to support you during this time. Thanks so much. That's the end of our conversation. We'll see everybody real soon.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye, guys.
panelists. Bye.